Slavite go Gospoda, zašto je dobar, Alleluia.
Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Nick, the master prayer knot artist behind Orthodox Handmade, and welcome to our 24th episode on YouTube, where we'll be going through an article entitled 12 Reasons Why I Became and or Remain an Orthodox Christian, written by Friar Andrew Stephen Damick on February 10th, all the way back in 2014, and this will be linked in the description below. I found this article particularly insightful given Andrew was not born into the Orthodox faith, and as you all know, it is of great interest to me those who decide to become part of the Orthodox Church as adults, not to mention it is also quite well written. If you're new to the channel and appreciate content revolving around Orthodox topics, be sure to subscribe, hit the notifications bell to be notified when new episodes drop, and be sure to smash that like button. This will prompt the YouTube algorithm to recommend Orthodox Handmade's unique content and assist in growing our faithful audience. Ladies and gentlemen, we're currently sitting at 2,448 faithful YouTube subscribers, and in keeping with tradition, this episode's new subscriber shout out goes to Road to Heaven. Thank you very much for subscribing to Orthodox Handmade. It is very, very much appreciated. Now let's get right into it. Lists like this are usually so much clickbait, I know, but I thought it was nevertheless worthwhile to compile a list of most of the reasons why I became and or remain an Orthodox Christian. Some of these things were not really on my radar when I became Orthodox in 1998, but they are part of the reason why I genuinely do love belonging to the Orthodox Church, which is why and or remain is in the title. The nature of lists like this is such that they can't constitute apologetics really, nor is this one at least intended to be universally applicable. These are my reasons. They may not be someone else's. It will also become apparent that my background as an evangelical prior to becoming Orthodox is a major factor here. So, all that said, here's the list. Number 1. I believe the Orthodox Church really is the one true Church of Christ. There's a lot that could be said here, but the reason why I believe this is that I examined both the scriptures and the early history of Christianity, and I became convinced that the only church that matches them both is orthodoxy. Particularly formative for me were the writings of Saint Ignatius of Antioch, a disciple of the Apostle John. The church life he described was definitely not what I saw in evangelicalism. Since he was someone who learnt how to be a Christian from the apostles themselves, I wanted to be in his church. Orthodoxy takes history seriously and doesn't gloss over the hard stuff. It also doesn't pick and choose from early Christian witness to develop a streamlined system of theology that is easy to swallow. Rather, because orthodoxy is truly the community descended from the apostles, within its theological memory are centuries of dogma, doctrine, and theological reflection. Not all of it is totally consistent or easy to sort out, but it is nevertheless one great river of truth with an overall unified direction. One doesn't see that in the same way in Roman Catholicism. There are several major turns in history, and it is impossible to find that in Protestantism. Most Protestants aren't even concerned with it. None of that means I regard non-Orthodox Christians as damned, nor do I even regard all Orthodox Christians as definitely destined for eternal bliss. And Orthodoxy's truth is no testament to me. Orthodoxy is true, but it's true not because of me. Number 2, Orthodoxy gives me something to do. I don't mean that I was bored and needed something to entertain me. I mean that the Christian life, as I had been taught prior to becoming Orthodox, was essentially non-critical. I had been, quote-unquote, saved, and there was really nothing critical to do after that. I should try to be more moral, of course, and get other people to get saved too, but those things weren't really necessary to the big question, which was, do you know what would happen to you if you died tonight? Well, I knew I was, quote-unquote, saved. I was going to heaven. But what if spiritual life is actually all critical? What if you need to endure to the end to be saved? What if being a Christian means working on your salvation with fear and trembling? Orthodoxy provides a full-bodied, full-souled spiritual life that assumes that everything you do as a Christian makes you either more like God or less like Him. And because becoming like God is what salvation consists of, that means that everything you do is critical. You haven't arrived in this life. You should be moral and you should be evangelistic. Not because they get you bigger rewards in heaven, but because those things are part of what it means to cooperate with God so that you can be saved. Number 3, orthodoxy gives me a way to see and touch God physically. The Son of God became the Son of Mary, and that means that He became visible and touchable in a truly material way. In orthodoxy, the implications of the doctrine of the Incarnation are that the divine presence, holiness, actually becomes present in and alters the material world. Now, one can argue that the presence is uniquely present only in one physical place, the material human body of Jesus, or one can be consistent and see how holiness shows forth in lots of other physical places, both in the Bible and in subsequent Christian history. Saints' bones, apostles' shadows, and even handkerchiefs touched by apostles have all showed forth the power of God. Within that context, when Jesus said, "This is my body," and "This is my blood," it makes more sense to take Him seriously and not just metaphorically. That's why St. Paul warned that people who received Holy Communion unworthily could get sick or even die. If it's just a symbol, why would it do that? The physicality of orthodoxy, sacraments, incense, vestments, church architecture, icons, etc., don't get between me and God. They put me in touch with God. A bridge between two cliffs does not get between the cliffs, but rather connects them. Orthodoxy's many physical elements, not man-made magic, but the workings out of God's gift of the Incarnation, the reconnecting of God and man. Number 4, change is really hard. People sometimes joke that orthodoxy is not really an quote-unquote organized religion, with emphasis on the organized part. There is no pope handing down uniform instructions to the whole world. Our chiefest prelates often can't seem to get along, and it seems like we're never going to get around to holding that great and holy council we've been talking about for nearly a century. But all those things don't bother me. For one thing, it means that sheer logistics make it nearly impossible for us to alter what we do. And if all that eternity and truth stuff is really true, why should we think about altering it? It can't get voted on democratically, and it can't get imposed monarchically. So change doesn't much happen. That's not a bug. It's a feature. Orthodoxy is not going to change out from under you. That lack of organization also leads me to love orthodoxy for another reason too. Number 5, orthodoxy really is one church. Unlike the denominationalism of the Protestant world, the various churches of orthodoxy really do have to talk to each other and work things out. A Presbyterian and a Lutheran may each recognize each other as Christian, but they have almost no stake in each other's eternal life. The same even holds true of someone belonging to the PCA and someone belonging to the PCUSA, both Presbyterian denominations. They don't have to work anything out between them. A PCA church plant does not in any way infringe on the territory of the PCUSA, because they're not the same church. Orthodoxy may often bicker and fight, though most parishioners never see this unless they happen to be in a dysfunctional parish. But the fact that we have such bickering and fighting with each other means that we recognize in each other that we are one church, that we have one problem, and that we need to fix it. Protestants always have the option of just splitting, and once splits occur, they don't have to bother with each other again. While Roman Catholics can ultimately appeal to the Vatican, who can impose solutions that work for the Vatican, but might not work for everyone else involved. Number 6, orthodoxy is a faith for the whole life. Because orthodoxy comes with a vast set of expressions of its tradition, You can never exhaust it all. There is always something new, not just to learn, but to become. While we don't really arrive until the next life, and I'd argue even that it's not an arrival, that is, it's not the end of the road of salvation, there are many way stations in this life that delight and grant joy. The difference between orthodoxy and evangelicalism in this regard is that I'm talking about not just growing in wisdom, which is common to all religious traditions, but that orthodoxy tracks many stages of spiritual development throughout a whole lifetime. I remember one time hearing a monk explain the response he got from a holy elder on Mount Athos after asking him many questions. The elder replied that some things just wouldn't make sense to him until later, until he'd received some level of illumination, or in brackets, theoria. It's true. One cannot read a statement of faith from orthodoxy, not even the creed, and say, yes, that is everything orthodoxy teaches. I understand it now. Again, that's not a bug. It's a feature. Yes, we like things to be simple, to be readily accessible to everyone, but any faith that is not complex enough to address all the complexities of the human experience is not worthy of the dignity of mankind. Orthodoxy provides that in a way that I haven't found anywhere else. Number 7, orthodoxy is a faith for the whole world. There are no target demographics for orthodoxy. We don't do market research to figure out how to attract young people, old people, urban people, suburban people, or whatever particular demographic we might desire for our parish. A parish can often have a certain degree of commonality among members, but that isn't by inherent design. There was no committee that met saying, how do we get the 30-something suburbanites? Yes, orthodoxy is sometimes plagued with ethnocentrism. But that's a distortion of orthodoxy, not faithfulness to it. And it's not everywhere. I've belonged to both more ethnically focused and less ethnically focused, as well as ethnically non-focused Orthodox parishes. And none of them had an ethnic membership card check at the door. Orthodoxy is really a universal faith that has shaped numerous cultures and languages over many centuries. If people as diverse as Arabs, Greeks, Slavs, Georgians, Russians, Estonians and Finns can all sing the same faith, and if both their young and old can sing it together, then truly anyone is welcome. Some Orthodox need to remember that more than others though. Number 8. Orthodoxy is a faith for the whole person. Mankind is not just emotionally moved by beauty, but he aches to be near it, to create it as much as that is possible. More than any other iteration of Christian faith, the Orthodox Church knows how to envelop the worshipper with beauty in all 5 or more senses, both otherworldly beauty that transports the worshipper and otherworldly beauty that transforms the earthly. One might describe this as aesthetic, but it is not mere aesthetics in the sense of something that appeals only to the senses, perhaps for entertainment value, but goes nowhere in particular. This is aesthetic in the sense that God himself is beauty. That is why orthodoxy, while sometimes homely or homey, is never cheesy. It is timely and timeless, but not contemporary. The beauty of orthodoxy addresses the whole human person in multiple ways. It is not a faith just for the soul or the heart, but for the body as well, including our ability to apprehend beauty. Number 9, God really does love you the way you are, and he loves you so much he won't leave you that way. There seems to be a constant battle these days, especially within Protestantism, over whether God should be perceived as loving or as a judge. Even those who preach that God is love still tend to preach a God who is angry at you for your sins and has to be appeased. But orthodoxy preaches the God who is consistently loving, a God who loves with such strength that his love will change you if you only cooperate with it. The change won't be lousy either, turning you into some goody-goody prude. Rather, it will be a change into an authentic personhood where virtue is striven for because of communion, not because of adherence to arbitrary rules. Number 10, orthodoxy is both mystical and rational. Some Orthodox will oppose the mystical to the rational, but that's a mistake, I believe. For all the apophatic theology, which is theology which emphasizes our inability to know God with our minds, there is a lot of the cataphatic theology, which is the theology that makes clear and positive truth claims, in the tradition of the church. We don't have to choose one or the other, nor are the two really alternatives to each other. Apophatic theology is also not merely a corrective or cataphatic theology. Rather, both are simple ways of talking about theological emphasis within orthodoxy. It is not as though when I am serving the divine liturgy, I switch on the rational part when preaching the gospel, and then toggle the switch to mystical when I drink from the chalice. All these things are in place simultaneously. I love that, and I haven't really encountered that anywhere but in the Orthodox Church. Number 11. Orthodoxy is ascetical. No Christian body takes asceticism as seriously as Orthodoxy does. Roman Catholicism has had it in its tradition, but it is mostly ignored. Yet Orthodoxy expects all Christians to fast, to stand vigil, to be as non-possessive as possible, and etc., etc. And it provides a program for how to do that. You don't have to make it up for yourself because the tradition is already established. And it's also customizable according to the pastoral discernment of your father confessor. Asceticism is a way to do real battle with the broken modes that the human will functions in. It allows a man to take control of himself in a powerful way so that he can redirect his God-given powers and energies back towards God and always from his base appetites. Asceticism doesn't save anyone, but it certainly does help. Why? Because we are only saved to the degree that we want it. Asceticism helps us to want it. And as anyone who has really fasted for all of Lent and then tasted that first taste of roast lamb at the Pascha can tell you, asceticism actually makes the good things of this earth taste better. Far from being a denigration of God's good creation, asceticism returns the creation to us and opens up its beauty in ways that consuming it without restraint cannot ever do. Lastly on our list, number 12, Orthodoxy aims higher than any other Christian faith. While Theosis is not the only model of salvation in Orthodox Christian theology, it certainly makes some of the strongest claims. There are hints at doctrines of Theosis in Roman Catholicism. I am not aware of any Protestant groups that teach it. Yet it is only in Orthodoxy that one is taught that salvation means to become by grace what Christ is by nature, that God became man so that man might become divine. That becoming partakers of the divine nature is actually expounded upon. Becoming sons of God equal to the angels is taken very seriously. You won't find that anywhere else. Even Pentecostals who teach that you can be chosen by God, spoken through God, etc., aren't really teaching that you can enter into such union with God that you begin to take on divine attributes. But that is exactly what Orthodoxy teaches. That the transfiguration, death, resurrection, and ascension of Christ are all what it truly means to be a Christian, that mankind is now seated on the very throne of God himself, and being in Christ means being seated there too. Pretty daring, but why settle for less? Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this episode and gained much insight from Friar Damick's article and perspective, once again linked in the description down below. Let me know in the comments section if you agree or disagree with the points made in this video, and also tell us if you were born into the Orthodox faith or had converted at a later point in life. Your input and contribution to the channel is always interesting, and I endeavour to read and respond to as many comments as possible. Also guys, feel welcome to let me know what other topics you would like covered on this channel. Once again, if you like the content that I'm creating, be sure to subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget, we do new subscriber shoutouts, so if you're a new subscriber, let me know in the comments section by writing subscribed. Remember to follow Orthodox Handmade on social media, where you can see all the custom tools for prayer and all new crystal icons that I hand make for the faithful all around the world. Should you be interested in having your very own prayer rope or crystal icons created, there are details in the description below, or you're welcome to personally liaise with myself via direct message on both Instagram and Facebook. As for our upcoming episode, ladies and gentlemen, I will be providing some tips on how to care for your Orthodox prayer rope and addressing some commonly asked questions. Stay tuned and watch the upcoming Orthodox Handmade episode that will appear on your screen now. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe and God bless.
Славите го Господа, за što je